Ladies, gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new news roundup video. So today, we've got a whole range of topics to discuss. I don't want to waste any more time. I just want to dive into it. So something I haven't discussed at the end of last week, because I put out my Peacemaker Season 2 no spoilers review, which if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. But we also had some comments from the Peacemaker world premiere from Gunn, where he talked about that next sort of sequel to Superman thing and how far along it is, and it's a lot further along than I think any of us realized. So from Collider here, we've got a few interesting comments from Gunn saying, "We're scheduling it now. I'm totally done with the treatment. My treatments are incredibly intense. They're not regular treatments. They're 60-page treatments with dialogue and everything. And so now I'm just turning that into a script. We're planning out when we're going to shoot that. It's going to be much sooner rather than later." And then he even went on to say in another similar comment, "I've already finished the treatment for the next story in what I'll call the Superman SAGA. The treatment is done, which means a very, very worked out treatment. I'm working on that and hopefully going into production on that not too far away from today." Which is insane. We know that James Gunn writes incredibly fast. When he spoke about Peacemaker Season 1, he also wrote Peacemaker Season 2 incredibly quickly. But I think he also talked about maybe having a little bit of a break, but no, it looks like he can't help but really just dive straight back into the script writing process. And while yes, it's not like done or anything, he's made more waves than I think a lot of people realized, to the point of where, as he says himself, hopefully going into production on that not too far away from today. Now, no, that doesn't mean next week or next month or anything, but honestly, it's not like it's going to take forever. So a lot of people are now wondering, okay, could this be one of 2027's releases for DC Studios? And this is an interesting one because we know that Wonder Woman, written by Anna Nogueira, I probably butchered the name there, but we know that was fast-tracked. And when we kind of zoomed out recently discussing this in the previous news roundup, I think, it's like we got the Batman 2. October 2027, we know that's going to release, they're getting into pre-production, that's going to film in the spring, could be March, April-ish, maybe even May, but either way, it's got plenty of time to meet that October 2027 release. But we were also thinking, if they're fast-tracking Wonder Woman, maybe that could also release in 2027 as well. Think like the Supergirl timeline, how swiftly things move there. Also, like Clayface. But then we've also got this James Gunn sort of sequel, which is going lightning fast now, and he says himself will be entering production not too far away from today. So they could enter production at some point next year, and maybe release it at some point in 2027. So you technically would maybe have 2 DC Studios movies, and 1 DC Studios Elseworlds movie for 2027. Now I know that sounds like, oh my god, it's a lot of DC movies to release, but again, the way I see it, and as I said in my previous video, if you had like 2 MCU movies coming out and then Logan back in the day, you wouldn't really feel like those are 3 MCU movies. So with the Batman being such a distinctly different kind of movie than a mainline entry in the DCU, like Wonder Woman would be, or maybe this new Superman saga super family film that James Gunn is writing, quite possibly surrounding Supergirl and Superman going up against whoever, maybe Brainiac or someone else. Those 2 movies I think would be fine releasing in the same year as the Batman Part 2. But with the way Gunn is talking about this, it feels like a 2027 release to me. And the other project that could very well be geared up in time to release by 2027 could also be Wonder Woman. But obviously, Wonder Woman still needs to be figured out. But if Anna Nogueira also writes that just as fast as she did Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, then I have no doubt that that would also be a 2027 release. But talking about the DCU and expanding it and where things could be going next, we also had a couple of comments from Gunn with regards to how important Peacemaker Season 2 is actually with continuing the somewhat overarching story of the DCU. So Gunn said that there's a lot of major twists and turns in the last 3 episodes. And even though, I'm sending the first 5 episodes to select few, things still get out, as you know. But I really don't want what's in those last 3 episodes to be spoiled. And so I'm keeping them close to the chest. I won't even let my publicist see them. That's the God's honest truth. But I will also say that 6 and 8 maybe my favorite things I've ever done. Like, it's like of all time. Some of my favorite stuff ever. And that's interesting to hear because, again, check out my Peacemaker Season 2 review. But what Gunn is saying here is that it's episode 6, well, the last 3 episodes, 6, 7, and 8. Don't forget that Peacemaker Season 2, like Season 1, has 8 episodes. And guess what? I haven't seen episodes 6, 7, and 8. So whatever he's got planned here, that is quite instrumental in kind of, contributing to the through line of the overarching story of the DCU. Or while I don't want people to get, even though he is kind of hyping it up here, I don't think people should get insane expectations, but this must be and pertain to whatever other characters we could see cameo in the season in those last 3 episodes, to the point of where he didn't let people like myself who have screeners even see those episodes, because it would just leak. So to get into this even further, Gunn continued by saying Superman leads into this show, and then we have the setting up of all of the rest of the DCU in this season of Peacemaker. It's incredibly important. Lots of guest stars coming up, lots of characters that are going to show up that we already met in Superman, and I don't think there's anything I've done that I love more than this season of Peacemaker, so I am so excited for people to see it. So, a bit more of the same, but again, he himself is hyping it quite a bit there. Now, I know he wants people to be hyped and to go watch Peacemaker Season 2, so you could factor that into this, but it is making people think, okay, what character is he going to introduce? Is it going to be bigger than the current speculation we've already been discussing? And that was, could Lex Luthor appear in Peacemaker Season 2 from Reeves? What would be bigger than just Luthor being visited for one reason or another? Well, that would be the introduction of a new character from a future DCU project. Now, this is where things get even more interesting, because we're going down the Kumail Nanjiani Booster Gold route here. So there's been a thing for the past, I would say, a couple of months to 6 months, where there was another comment made where people were like, yeah, Kumail Nanjiani is not Booster Gold. And it's been based on little to nothing. There's been no outright denial. There's been no, actual shutdown here. And I'll get more onto that in just a second. But the reason why we're bringing in Kumail Nanjiani, could he actually pop up or be an example of a character that Gunn is kind of excited for people to see in episode 6, 7, 8 of Peacemaker? Well, a lot of people are noticing that, is at the season 2 premiere. Now, of course, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, because Kumail Nanjiani is friends with James Gunn, could just be supporting the show. We've seen him with Peter Safran and James Gunn at other events with the Superman cast quite a long time ago. But if you still want to believe in the whole wait, well, technically, if you go down the route of where it's never been officially debunked, they could have had him in place, planned to be Booster Gold for this entire time, as per the original kind of theory that we've been talking about the past couple of years. So, to get into the meat of this, we had a few people say to Apocalyptic Horseman, and I'm sure many of you know who he is, but if you don't, Apocalyptic Horseman is a writer for Nexus Point News. He has insane connections with DC stuff. And so we have users like this saying, well, what was this then? I'm confused. And again, another example of one of those outlet pages who just kind of recycle something, saying Kumail Nanjiani will not play Booster Gold in the DCU via Deadline. That is a quintessential example of many of the things that you guys might read, which actually isn't exactly what was said. And as Apocalyptic Horseman said here, Deadline never said that. They didn't. All they said was that it was an unconfirmed rumor. But we also have Apocalyptic Horseman say to another person who said, no, it's not. Deadline said it. And he said right back, they just said it was a rumor, but it's still happening. So he's saying from what he knows, and I trust his word quite a bit, that it's still happening, at least from what he knows, right? So just to go over what Deadline actually said, and where apparently they said not happening, all Deadline reported when people were just spitting that out there. But progress has been slowed. The DC bosses were reported recently saying that the project had lost its initial showrunner. They also scotched rumors for the time being that Kumail Nanjiani would play Booster. They didn't say, Deadline sources reached out to us and said that Kumail Nanjiani is not playing Booster Gold. They're just referencing something before that Gunn has said with regards to, okay, they also scotched rumors for the time being that Kumail Nanjiani would play Booster. And this is based off of stuff like this that you're seeing, where James Gunn reposted somebody on Threads saying, don't leave out picking up the Incredible Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, la-di-da-da, and basically because he reposted that, and that post contained an existing kind of character list for those in the DCU, and one of them was Kumail Nanjiani next to Booster Gold, as you're seeing on screen. We had this user saying, does you reposting this mean that Kumail Nanjiani as Booster Gold is confirmed? Gunn then said, no, I foolishly didn't even know there was more than one photo. So him saying no there doesn't mean that Kumail Nanjiani isn't going to be Booster Gold. He was asked, and if you know how James Gunn replies to things, you know that he does quite a few non-denials in where you can't actually say he was lying. Does you reposting this mean Kumail Nanjiani as Booster Gold is confirmed? No, I foolishly didn't even know there was more than one photo. No, it's not confirmed because he hasn't confirmed it. He's just strictly saying, no, it's not confirmed. He didn't say, no, Kumail Nanjiani is not and will not be Booster Gold. So things like that is what Deadline is referring to there. And that is what a bunch of other people circulated out there for some reason, as though Deadline was guaranteeing out there in their articles that, and absolutely sure that Kumail Nanjiani is not and will never play Booster Gold. No, that was never the case. So, long story short here, essentially the Kumail Nanjiani thing is alive. And that's actually never really gone away for me. It's just, I was still in the space of, but still, will it happen? There's technically been no firm debunking, no firm confirmation. So bringing this back around to the whole Peacemaker thing, technically with Gunn saying, and then we have the setting up of all of the rest of the DCU in this season of Peacemaker. It's incredibly important. Lots of guest stars coming up, stuff like that. And also we have John Cena here saying, instead of standalone properties, all of the DCU is now connected. So as you saw Peacemaker show up in Superman, and I think what you see in season 2 is just a forward of that narrative, that the whole DCU through line, it takes the 11th Street kids through their next adventure, but it also has a lot to do with the DCU going forward. Well, maybe, just maybe, one of the things that could pop up in episodes 6 and 8, because those were the two mainly highlighted ones, could maybe not be Lex Luthor like a lot of us have expected, but maybe, hey, one of the things that is still technically meant to be a part of the future of the DCU is Booster Gold, and could we have him just pop up somehow? But what if it isn't? It might not be Booster Gold. It could be something else that is fairly crazy as per what is being teased. So all I wanted to come out here and say is, obviously, big things to come in episodes 6 and 8 of Peacemaker Season 2. I haven't seen that. I have no idea. Absolutely no idea what it is, other than what we're speculating about here. I also wanted to address the whole Booster Gold thing not being shot down, like a lot of people seem to think that it is. And Apocalyptic Horseman is saying that it's still happening. So I do think that means that there could be a good chance of Kumail Nanjiani's Booster Gold popping up, but it would also be cool if we had some other crazy things happen in episodes 6 and 8. Like, don't get me wrong, Kumail Nanjiani as Booster Gold popping up would be pretty nuts. And, we'll see him again one day in Booster Gold. But there could be other things. Like, Gunn was hyping things up quite a bit here, that it might not just be unique. You could also maybe get Lex Luthor, because they've said that Lex Luthor will be appearing again and will be a major part of the DCU. So any theories you have, let me know down in the comments below. Now, the next topic of today's news roundup is another interesting one posted by DC Film News. So we know that Superman got released on digital. It's now out, and as a result, people have been combing through it HD style, so like we can get into the Easter eggs, and who knows, I might do a bonus video of going over all that stuff myself. But we have DC Film News saying Superman's parents' message may have been altered. And you look at that section in the movie, remember when right towards the end you see Sean Gunn's Maxwell Lord being asked about Luthor or whatever, but you have the little text crawl on the news saying, the Daily Planet shows Luthor was behind the false images of Superman's parents' message, claiming that. So that is obviously different to what we kind of know about the movie, because, I mean, we've heard that, and they maintained it through the movie, that Jor-El and Lara and their message about Superman basically coming to Earth to lord over it and everything was true. They didn't kind of do a take backsies there and like, oh no, you thought it was true, but it was a bit of a Lex Luthor birthright thing, and where really he manipulated things, and no, so you are, your Kryptonian parents are still good. No, it was still true. And to hammer down, as in hammer down and hammer down again, Gunn himself has come out in multiple interviews to the point of of literally saying, how can someone not think it's real? How can someone, I don't understand. So in the test screenings, people were like, it's real, you know, with AI, nobody trusts anything. Okay. In the movie, Mr. Terrific says, I know those computer forensic guys. There's no way. That's Mr. Terrific, as smart as Lex Luthor. Then I have Maury, the Secretary of Defense, say, think whatever you think about Luthor, but it's real. And then the clincher is that Gurkos and Lex are walking together, and you know Gurkos says, you doctored the message. This is great. And Lex says, it's not a message. It's not doctored. It's real. And who would have thought his own parents would be the ones to bring him down? So Gunn has made it pretty clear that even afterwards, you could say that maybe he's coping and he really doesn't want to reveal that one day he's actually going to do a little flip on it and it wasn't a real message. But I don't know, man. I took it that it really was just, you know, a real message. And people thinking otherwise, understandably, were going down the rabbit hole of, but what if? And I do get that. So now when you see this, how does it explain this? Because this is very clear. Like, the Daily Planet shows Luthor was behind the false images of Superman's parent. Like, so they're saying that that was a fake image. The Daily Planet are reporting it as fake. So here's my speculation. I may be wrong, but I think that maybe, and I know this might sound like a bit of a cope, but sometimes stuff like this in movies happen. What if this was one version of the movie and where Gunn was intending to do a little take backsies here and, you know, the whole Jor-El message was fake, and thus the Daily Planet here report that Luthor was behind the false images of Superman's parents' message, claiming that this, and this. But then he kind of changed his mind and wanted the movie to be such that the message was real the whole time. But sometimes in editing the movie, a little text crawl like that could have been mistakenly left in as a bit of an oversight. I know some of you maybe like laugh at that, but honestly, things like that actually do happen. The reason why I say this is quite simply because, I mean, Gunn himself really shot it down. So it feels like one of the only logical explanations is that it was a bit of an oversight and perhaps a part of a previous thing that they were planning to do. And when I said that on Twitter, I've had some people say, I don't know, actually, I think, you know, regardless of what it is, the Daily Planet did this anyway to kind of take the heat off of Superman and, you know, get some of the goodwill back from the public. But I think I disagree with that because I said I don't think they would lie, the Daily Planet, for the sake of that, especially when Lois Lane, anyway as a character, but in this movie, has a lot of integrity about journalism and reporting the truth, to suggest that she would publish something out there that would lie in saying that Jor-El's message was fake, when really, no, hey, how about we report that it's the truth? But that doesn't necessarily reflect upon Superman himself, and so we shouldn't put that on him. Like, she would say it that way. That would be the Lois Lane thing to do. I don't think those suggesting that, oh yeah, the Daily Planet put this out there anyway to kind of, you know, take the heat off of Superman. We can all see what Luthor's done with the whole Baravia thing and how he's been exposed for all of this stuff, the crack in the city, so we may as well put the Jor-El message thing on him as well. Call me naive, but I just don't think Lois Lane would do that, because she's the one, as per Jimmy was typing up in the T-ship, who was, you know, saying what the report should say, and Jimmy was transcribing it to put out there. So I guess, you know, if you want to agree with me there and how Lois Lane wouldn't lie, and what are we left with? Well, why would this be in the movie? Maybe it was the original intention, but there was an oversight. But let me know if you disagree with me. Again, even I'm not firm on it, because it's not like I know for sure what the real reason behind this is. Let me know down in the comments below, but really, I feel like unless Gunn comments about this, I don't think we're going to get a clear answer. And I don't know if he is going to comment on it, because if it is an editing oversight, I don't think he would want to publicly reply to someone kind of admitting that, like, oh shoot, that's not supposed to be there. So he might kind of let it fizzle out, you know, over time, because, you know, I think still 99% of people who watch this movie won't notice that little text crawl. It's only the people like us who obsess over the little details. Now, as for some other returning characters in the DCU, Gunn did say a couple of interesting things about Bloodsport and Harley Quinn. So when being asked about Margot Robbie and if she could continue to play Harley Quinn in the DCU, Gunn said that will be revealed down the line. And as for Idris Elba's Bloodsport, he said, I definitely am always looking for a place to put Bloodsport and figuring that out, so we'll see what happens. So quite vague, simple answers, more confident with Bloodsport. I think the Margot Robbie thing is still in flux in the sense that there's two ways I think I feel about this. I think for me, if we ever, like, I say if we ever, but maybe we will, maybe we won't. It's a weird one. When it comes to Joker and Harley in the DCU, what are we going to get there? Considering you have characters like Superman completely recast and the continuity behind him not maintained from the DCEU. There's no Black Zero event, there's no Man of Steel BVS events that are canon. So with Batman and his rogues like Harley and Joker or Clayface to whoever, right? Ra's al Ghul, it doesn't really matter. You would have to think, or at least my preference would be, that no DCEU continuity is kept for Batman, nor his rogues. But you could mostly do that and still like pepper in the casting of Margot Robbie's Harley as a constant, even if you still edit her history from Birds of Prey and Suicide Squad and stuff like that. My preference would be that, hey, new Batman, new continuity, very different. We have like Robins here and stuff like that. So when it comes to Joker and Harley, I would say get a new actor in, new actors. And that's nothing against Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. I've actually always really liked her. But I just, given what I've been saying, new Superman continuity, all of that stuff, new Superman, new Batman, I'd rather have a new Harley. And that's if we're ever going to see, like, Joker and Harley anytime soon before 2029. Do you know what I mean? But if we do, yeah, I would like a new actor. However, Margot Robbie's a big name, So Warner Brothers, if they could keep her playing the role in the new DCU, that would still attract people to see the movie in some way, shape, or form. You'd have to size that up for yourself, but Margot Robbie's Margot Robbie, so there is a bit of star power being like, oh, she's still Harley, and you could still do that. Keep the casting, but edit her continuity from the past. So, for example, you could keep Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn in the DCU, but she never broke up with the Joker. And obviously, Joker isn't Jared Leto. That way, I think you get the best of both worlds, and where there's still a lot of Harley Quinn, Joker anarchy that can happen with Batman at some point, but you also keep the star power of Margot Robbie. I guess I leave that over to you. Would you like a new Harley Quinn, new actor, as well as new continuity? Or do you think they should keep Margot Robbie for not only star power, but maybe you really liked Margot Robbie, but would you like the continuity change? Would you like, the Birds of Prey movie to not happen, or maybe some events in that movie to happen, but would you like her to be back with the Joker or on good terms with the Joker? Or do you like the arc of where she's completely split up with the Joker in the DCU? But as for Bloodsport, I'll take him where I can get him. I think Idris Elba is such a good actor, and bringing him back as Bloodsport, I feel like there's plenty of opportunities out of all the projects where that can happen. I fully believe Gunn here when he says that. He's just trying to figure out, hey, where would it be best to place Bloodsport? And I'll just take him when I can get him. Now, in terms of the Batman news, well, we have Jeff Snyder saying that Kristen Milioti is seemingly returning as Sofia Falcone in the Batman 2. Now, obviously, we have had Jeff Snyder come out with that Robin rumor, and I haven't actually followed up on this, but we had Gunn respond over on Threads saying, guys, please stop believing this nonsense. I think 6 of us have read the script. No one knows anything about the Batman 2. We have had some people say, well, technically, that's not a denial. I get what people mean by that, because you could arguably say, I know some people would be like, Boba, why even entertain this? But it's true. Like, technically, and you know me, I don't think there will really be a Robin in Reeves' epic crime saga. But when he's saying, guys, please stop believing this nonsense, I think you could argue he's like talk about any and all reports, because as he goes on to say, because 6 of us have only read the script, no one knows anything about the Batman 2. So any story, whether you want to say one is true, and just stop believing this nonsense overall. But you could also just say, yes, he did completely shut it down here. But all I'm trying to say overall is Gunn shot down the Robin rumor by saying, guys, please stop believing this nonsense. So is Kristen Milioti, Sofia Falcone returning in the Batman Part 2? Coming from Jeff Snyder, again, very hit or miss. I always do like to, give credit where credit's due, and Jeff Snyder has been correct about some things, but this one is kind of a rumor where it's easy for people to believe it, in terms of, okay, we have Sofia Falcone in Arkham, we had Catwoman literally write to her, so could you have a scene in the Batman Part 2 where we have Kristen Milioti reprise her role? So I'm not mega sold on Sofia Falcone being in the Batman 2, I just think it's an easy rumor to just say, oh, I've heard that. Now, grain of salt, maybe this is true. Maybe it isn't, though. Now, we have a little bit of a future Boba appearance here because we might not have some great news because Josh Brolin went on the podcast On Film with Kevin McCarthy, and he said, as re-reported by Discussing Film here, Greig Fraser will be the cinematographer for Sam Mendes' 4 Beatles films, 4 of them. This means he likely won't be able to return for the Batman Part 2. So, I mean, that isn't, like, great because Greig Fraser's work on the Batman movie, well, the Batman and what would have been the Batman 2 is just such a, identifying fundamental block of what this world is, the microcosm of Gotham that Matt Reeves gave to us. And after learning that Greig Fraser wasn't going to be the cinematographer for the next Dune movie, well, the final one, it was like, okay, well, that frees him up for the Batman Part 2, and now we're hearing this. And the reason why it's a bit of an issue is because, yes, even though it started filming, I believe, around July of this year, obviously, the shoot, given that it's 4 different movies, is expected to be around 15 months of shooting. So, Greig Fraser might be busy for some time. Now, what does this mean for the Batman Part 2? I mean, well, it looks like we might have to get a different cinematographer. Now, I actually don't have any suggestions from the top of my head right now. I've already seen people say Roger Deakins and whatnot, but I would love to know, A, what you think about this, but B, who do you think could offer the Batman feel of things to the Batman Part 2? Maybe not top Greig Fraser or anything, but, who could still do it justice? And who do you think realistically could be involved in the next movie? And on the DCU Pattinson Batman merger thing, we've had a minor kind of update. It's not really an update, but it kind of points more towards, would Gunn really say this if they were merging? So we had this user saying, what is the point of Reeves making another Batman movie if it's not a part of your DC universe? We don't need 2 different Batman movies to confuse fans. And Gunn replies, you don't seem to be confused, which is obviously a bit of a dunk kind of joke in terms of, well, you just pointed it out and you're not confused. You understand it. And I know some people were like digging into what Gunn said, but that's a fan, not the general audience, so they could still be confused. But the point is, as to why I brought this up, is why would Gunn really reply to this unless he still planned on, hey, the Batman, Matt Reeves' epic crime saga, Pattinson Batman is separate, and we're still doing the DCU Batman over here in the DCU. You don't seem to be confused. Why would I bother replying this unless that wasn't still the case, as I've been saying this entire time? Now, on the Marvel side of things, we had Ryan Reynolds post this Avengers symbol with a little bit of a spray paint over it, which, I mean, Deadpool, which has got many fans to be like, wait, what is Deadpool going to be in Doomsday? Maybe we're thinking Secret Wars and where things get even more nuts there. But now we've had a couple of reports come out where we've had some people say that he could be in it, but at the same time, we have Deadline saying maybe not so much. So we have the Hollywood Reporter here saying that early on Tuesday morning, Ryan Reynolds ignited speculation that Deadpool would finally get his dream and share the screen with the Avengers when he posted an Avengers logo that had been vandalized with graffiti, something Deadpool would do. Sources tell Heat Vision, so the Hollywood Reporter's Heat Vision, that yes, Deadpool will appear in Avengers Doomsday, but don't expect him to actually be joining the Avengers team, though. Which I think would be fair enough. You could easily imagine him doing a funny cameo scene, like what if Deadpool just doesn't really care what's going on with Doctor Doom? But you also have Deadline here saying that sources tell us that they haven't seen Ryan Reynolds on the set in London, and he isn't set to appear in the next 2 Avengers movies, which I don't think really means a whole bunch, because you could have Ryan Reynolds literally film a scene not on the set of London. You could have it on like a freaking green screen somewhere that they could easily fit into the movie, so it's just kept under lock and key, even though you have Ryan Reynolds literally advertising it on his Instagram, which, is the big thing about all of this. Why do that unless you aren't going to kind of maybe pop up in a little micro scene in Doomsday? Now, however, would this mean that you could kind of get Hugh Jackman's Wolverine pop up as well, but save more of that for further down the line? That remains to be seen, but I would love to know any theories you have about this. Again, it's not like Deadpool's going to be on the Avengers team, but do you think that this is just going to be a little kind of joke in the movie to kind of be like, hey, Deadpool's still here, but here's a little gag where he might not care so much. Now, in other news, and I haven't covered this in bloody ages, but I did back before season 1 when we had the show coming, and that is Fallout. Now, in case you don't know, I am a huge fan of the Fallout games. I've put hundreds of hours into them. And as of the end of Season 1, getting into the whole New Vegas side of things, obviously with these teasers coming out of Fallout on Prime, man, I am excited because I really enjoyed what they did with Season 1. And as Deadline says here, Season 2 of Fallout will pick up in the aftermath of Season 1's epic finale, taking viewers on a journey through the wasteland of the Mojave to the post-apocalyptic city of New Vegas. And we can see Walter Goggins here, he's not in ghoul mode here, so this would be a flashback, and you can see a reflection on the window of the Lucky 38 casino. And again, anyone who's played New Vegas, you know what we're getting into here. I really liked how they weaved back and forth between present day scenes in Fallout and these flashbacks, which give really interesting clues as to how, at least how they're doing it in this iteration, things went down with the bombs. And obviously with stuff like this in New Vegas, Mr. House, and what else they could be possibly getting into, that is one of the most intriguing things for fans, because in the games, obviously there's different avenues you can go down based on the decisions that you make. New Vegas's future could look pretty bright, but when we saw it in Fallout, it's like, wait, what's going on here? It kind of looks like things are pretty cooked in New Vegas. So again, New Vegas is my favorite Fallout game, so I am absolutely delighted that we're seeing Lucy go into New Vegas here. We see some other screenshots here of some power armor with Maximus there. We see Lucy's brother, Norm, in the vault, but we also see Hank McLean, her father, but it looks like to be a flashback here potentially to maybe we're going to explore more of his days where he actually worked for Vault-Tec. Obviously, a very shady character, and some of the final scenes we saw of him was literally approaching New Vegas, so yeah, a bit of a teaser, nothing too much, not exactly a trailer. We also got a new poster of the Ghoul, Lucy, and Maximus approaching New Vegas, or kind of walking away from New Vegas there. But let me know if you're looking forward to Season 2 in December, and if you want to see me do even more coverage on Fallout. Obviously, this isn't much, it's just me pointing out a couple of new bits and pieces that we got, but huge Fallout fan here, and I'd love to know if any of you are, because we could get into more in future videos. But ladies and gentlemen, that is absolutely everything I'm going to get into in today's news roundup. Let me know your thoughts on everything we discussed. I read every comment. You may not believe me, but I do, so I'll try and interact with as many as I can. If you're still watching like right now, I'd really appreciate it if you just click that thumbs up button, whether it's on your TV or your phone. Just helps out the channel, algorithmically push it out there to more people. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see all of you guys in the next video. Goodbye.